Just over 2 months until the NFL season kicks off. Super Bowl champion Rams host the Bills in the very first game of the new year. And heading into a new season, Buffalo is the Super Bowl favorites plus 650. With Tom Brady back, the Buccaneers, they're a close second. Then the Chiefs, Packers, and Rams, they round out the top five. Well, looking ahead to our NFL futures, we bring in our Vegas insider, Todd Fuhrman, with the wagers you need to make right now. Todd, best bet for an NFL team to make the playoffs. Who are you leaning towards in this spot?
Well, I can't possibly see how my proclamation here in late June is going to come back to haunt me in the middle of November, because this team has basically owned me for the last couple of seasons. But you know what? That's not going to stop me from showing my blind faith amid a coaching change and a fresh voice in that locker room. So for me, it's the Minnesota Vikings to make the postseason this year. I look at the change at the helm, and I think Mike Zimmer's voice had grown stale. He wasn't resonating with the players. You saw his calling card being defense really deteriorate over the last couple of years. And this was a Vikings team that was so close early in the year to being 8-1, 8-2 with near misses in those late game situations. Let's hope that an offensive-minded head coach in Kevin O'Connell can get the best out of Kirk Cousins. We know about the skill position talent he's surrounded by, Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson amongst some of the best in the game. I do think this is an offensive line, when healthy, that can be sneaky good as well. I love the pick last year of Christian Darrisaw and Ezra Cleveland. But more importantly, Minnesota defensively can't be worse than what we saw a season ago. So if they're able to bolster that secondary, generate some pass rush coming up front, specifically in the form of Danielle Hunter, I think the Minnesota Vikings have all the makings of a team that can contend for one of the top seeds in the NFC. I like them to win the division as well as a value play at plus 275, and it says as much about the Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, and state of Chicago Bears than anything else. But I think the best bet for Minnesota right now is for them to make the postseason.
All right, bold pick there to get us rolling. But you might remember the playoffs expanded last season to include 14 teams in the postseason. So, Todd, who are you willing to wager on will be one of the unlucky 18 teams watching the playoffs? Like you and me, we're just going to be watching on our living room couches.
This one was a little bit harder, and when you looked at the dynamic in play, the AFC, no doubt, top to bottom, has a lot more top-tier quarterbacks that I think will make things difficult. So I tried to find some value for a team with public perception that was going to work in my favor. Ultimately, I couldn't find a team that I liked enough to try and endorse a bet, so I went right back to the NFC, and a team who spent this offseason largely in disarray, specifically around their starting quarterback in Kyler Murray. Arizona, no doubt, was one of the bigger surprises last year with that improbable undefeated start. But as we've seen time and time again, whether it's in the National Football League or his time at Texas Tech, Cliff Kingsbury's teams do not play good football when it matters most. And for Arizona this season, going through the first 6 games without Kyler Murray's security blanket in DeAndre Hopkins, I think that can be a bit of an uphill battle. Gone is Christian Kirk as well, in is Hollywood Brown. But when you have a disgruntled starting quarterback and one that's been injury prone in the past, I'm not sure it's quite the recipe for success. I think there's room for defensive regression as well. And when you look at that schedule for Arizona, the most winnable games that they'll play early on are arguably on the road. I think Arizona could find themselves behind the 8 ball and things could snowball quickly in the desert. I'm going to take Arizona to be on the outside looking in of the NFC postseason picture.
Well, thinking back to the list of teams with the best odds to win Super Bowl 57, fair to say the NFL MVP could come from one of those teams. But looking at past winners, Aaron Rodgers twice, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Brady, to name a few, their teams were not playing for the Lombardi Trophy the year they took home the honors. Take us down the board a bit here, Todd. Where do you see some value for most valuable player?
You know, for me, this is all about a quarterback-driven award. I think even in this day and age where you see, wide receivers and running backs like we did last year and Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp put up video game-like numbers, it's hard to try and make a strong case for some of those players at odds that just don't give you the price tag. So, of course, you start to look at quarterbacks, and then you want to dig a little bit deeper to find some of those value propositions. One of the guys that I had circled was Jalen Hurts, because I think Philadelphia has given him the pieces around him. The problem being is Hurts is priced at 30-1, doesn't warrant a bet and tying up your money for this long. So we talked about the Minnesota Vikings and what I expect to see from that team this year with an offensive-minded head coach. So why would I not go to a starting quarterback that I think will benefit immensely from a change in philosophy? Allow Kirk Cousins to throw on early downs. Don't put him in third and intermediate situations where it's a known passing situation and teams can pin their ears back. Cousins' numbers for extended stretches last year were as good as any quarterback in the league. And while sometimes it's tough to get over this stigma because you don't have the name of Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or your aforementioned Aaron Rodgers. 60-1 for me on Cousins for a team that I think can light up the scoreboard was way too much opportunity to pass up. So that's going to be my flyer here on Kirk Cousins. I think he'll benefit immensely from a change at the helm of the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, Todd, so who are you targeting then as your best bet to win NFL MVP?
Well, this is a guy that is going to be a household name. He already is, and I think he's going to win people a lot of fantasy football championships this year. He's got a coach, with a very aggressive, offensive-minded philosophy that allows him to grip it and rip it for stretches. So when I look at the Los Angeles Chargers, this is a team I think that can win the NFC West, and if that's going to happen, it's because Justin Herbert is putting up massive numbers. We saw him take the next step in his development from his rookie campaign to a sophomore season. I look at his number here at 12-1, and I actually think he should be mentioned in the same breath as the favorite. Now, I know he's not a huge drop-off from the likes of Josh Allen at 8-1, but I think Herbert should be in single digits. This is a guy I absolutely love, and I'm sure every time Miami Dolphins fans have to turn on the TV and watch Tua, they're going to wonder what could have been had the team decided to select Justin Herbert number 5 instead of sending him out to LA with the 6th overall pick.
Yeah, kind of that shoulda, coulda, woulda game there. Where would they be with Herbert? Now, there's a couple different directions you can go with this one, Todd, but of all the wagers you're seeing for this upcoming NFL season, what's the wager we need to make right now? Like, our viewers should put down a few dollars during this next commercial break.
You know, this is way too much purple Kool-Aid, and I'm glad, Sherry and Joe, that I'm not sitting here with Pete Prisco to tell me, well, don't the Minnesota Vikings play in prime time? Can you really trust Kirk Cousins to go out there and take care of business? But this is a team last year that I think the final record was not indicative of how talented this team was. They dealt with a rash of injuries at key positions, specifically on the defensive side. They went out during the draft and tried to address some of the deficiencies in the secondary, specifically drafting Andrew Booth in the 2nd round out of Clemson. And so when I look at the Minnesota Vikings in a division that I think offers a lot more questions than it does answers, with a Devontae Adams-less Green Bay Packers, a Detroit Lions team that'll be better, but still, a couple of years away from being relevant, and the Chicago Bears, who are in rebuild mode, I think the Vikings can go 4-2 or maybe even 5-1 in the division. That'll springboard them to a double-digit win season. And if I like them to be a dark horse to make the playoffs, I like them to make a deep run in the playoffs, and I'm making a case for their starting quarterback to be a long shot MVP. Sherry, I'm going to make a case for them to go over 9 wins and be able to cash a ticket if they finish 10-7 or better.
Yeah, I expect Todd Fuhrman doing the gritty all the way to the window there with all these picks. We appreciate the time. Thank you. All right, let's get you a look again at what Todd is liking for his NFL future wagers. He's liking a lot of Minnesota Vikings, as you're seeing here on the page. Best wager for a team to make the playoffs, Minnesota. A team to miss the playoffs, he's going with the Arizona Cardinals. A value pick, plus 6,000, going with Kirk Cousins to win MVP. His best bet, though, to take home that honor, Justin Herbert. And his best NFL future wager to make right now, Vikings over 9 wins.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.